Welcome to Ab Immemorabile, from time beyond memory. I'm Drake,
And I'm Holly, where ancient wisdom meets modern minds.
brought to you by the most ancient anamnetic order of Trikala, for seekers everywhere. Whether you're walking with us or simply curious about the path,
Each episode, we explore the hidden patterns that connect philosophy, consciousness, and human transformation.
drawing from traditions east and west, old and new, familiar and forgotten.
Because some truths exist outside of time, waiting to be remembered, not learned.
On this episode, we're exploring one of humanity's most sophisticated technologies for consciousness transformation, the Vedic fire altar, where ancient India discovered that building sacred structures in the outer world could reconstruct consciousness itself.
Drake, when most people think of ancient spiritual practices, they imagine meditation, prayer, perhaps ritual. But the Vedic tradition did something extraordinary. They built consciousness, brick by brick, through sacred geometry.
The Agnicayana ritual is perhaps the world's oldest continuously performed ritual, dating back at least 3,000 years. But calling it a ritual doesn't capture what it really is. It's a technology for restructuring awareness through precise mathematical and geometric relationships.
Explain what actually happens in this ritual.
Picture this. Over the course of a year, practitioners build a fire altar using exactly 1,009 bricks, arranged in 5 layers according to precise mathematical formulae. Each brick represents an aspect of consciousness. The altar's shape, usually a falcon or eagle, represents the soul ready to ascend to higher realms. But here's the key. As you build the altar outside, you're simultaneously building something inside yourself.
So it's not metaphorical. They literally believed that constructing this altar reconstructed the practitioner's consciousness.
Not believed, experienced. The Vedic seers, the rishis, understood something we're only beginning to rediscover through neuroscience. That focused attention on geometric patterns, combined with mantras and ritual action, creates measurable changes in brain structure and function.
The preparation for this ritual is extraordinary too. The patron who sponsors it undergoes a year of preparation, dietary restrictions, celibacy, specific practices. They're essentially preparing their consciousness to be rebuilt.
And the preparation begins even before that. The bricks themselves must be made from specific clay, gathered from particular locations, mixed with particular substances. Each brick is created with mantras, essentially programming it with intention before it ever becomes part of the altar.
So even making the building materials is a spiritual practice.
Everything is practice in this tradition. The Vedic understanding doesn't separate sacred from mundane. Gathering clay becomes meditation. Forming bricks becomes prayer. The entire year is a sustained consciousness practice, culminating in the altar's construction.
Let's talk about the mathematics involved, because it's staggering. The altar construction requires understanding of what we now call the Pythagorean theorem, but the Vedic texts describe it 1,000 years before Pythagoras.
The Shulba Sutras, the geometric texts that guide altar construction, contain sophisticated mathematics. They describe how to construct a square equal in area to a circle, how to double the area of a square, how to combine areas. But this isn't abstract mathematics. Every calculation has consciousness significance.
How so?
Take the basic altar dimensions. The altar must be 7.5 times the height of the practitioner, establishing a precise relationship between the individual body and the cosmic body being constructed. The eastward extension increases by 1 brick length each year if you repeat the ritual, representing the expansion of consciousness over time.
It's like they encoded growth into the very structure.
Exactly. And the proportions aren't arbitrary. They correspond to astronomical cycles. The altar's measurements relate to lunar months, solar years, the precession of equinoxes. The practitioners were literally building a microcosm of spacetime in brick and fire.
The mathematical precision is remarkable. The texts specify that if you want to combine 2 squares into one, you use what we now call the Pythagorean theorem. But they express it practically. Place the diagonal of one square along the side of another.
And they understood irrational numbers. The diagonal of a square with side 1 has length square root of 2, an irrational number. The Vedic mathematicians knew this couldn't be expressed as a simple ratio. Yet they developed practical methods for construction that achieved remarkable accuracy.
This connects to something the order teaches, that certain proportions and patterns resonate with consciousness itself, that geometry isn't just description, but prescription for transformation.
The Vedic seers would say geometry is the language consciousness uses to express itself in form. By working with sacred geometry, you're working directly with the patterns that structure awareness itself.
Let's go deeper into the 5 layers of the altar, because each represents a different level of reality and consciousness.
The first layer represents the physical earth, the material foundation. It's built with 200 bricks arranged to create stability. The second layer is the realm of vital force, prana. 200 bricks arranged differently, creating channels for energy flow. The third is the mental layer, the realm of thought and emotion. The fourth is the realm of pure consciousness, beyond thought. And the fifth, built with only 9 bricks, represents the transcendent, that which is beyond all categories.
And as you build each layer, you're contemplating that aspect of your own being.
More than contemplating, you're restructuring. Each brick is placed with a specific mantra that programs, if you will, that aspect of consciousness. The Vedic tradition understood that consciousness is programmable, that repeated patterns of thought and action create lasting changes in awareness.
The mantras themselves are fascinating. Each one invokes specific deities, energies, or principles. As you place a brick while chanting, you're essentially weaving that quality into your consciousness structure.
And the mantras aren't arbitrary. They use specific sound frequencies, specific rhythms. Modern research shows that certain sound patterns can entrain brainwaves, shift neurological states. The Vedic priests were using sound as a consciousness technology.
This is remarkably similar to what we now know about neuroplasticity, that the brain physically restructures based on repeated patterns of thought and behavior.
The Vedic seers were neuroplasticity experts 3,000 years before we had the term. They knew that building the altar with complete attention, precise geometry, and sacred sound would rebuild the practitioner's inner architecture.
And they understood something else crucial. That transformation requires the whole being. It's not enough to think differently. You need to engage the body through physical construction, the breath through pranayama, the voice through mantra, the mind through concentration, all simultaneously.
Modern embodied cognition research confirms this. We don't just think with our brains, but with our entire bodies. The Vedic tradition knew that to transform consciousness, you had to engage every level of being simultaneously.
Let's talk about fire itself because Agni, fire, is central to this whole process.
Agni is fascinating because it represents consciousness in its transformative aspect. Fire converts matter to energy, visible to invisible, form to formless. It's the perfect symbol for consciousness, which similarly transforms experience into understanding, sensation into awareness.
And in the Vedic understanding, fire exists at multiple levels simultaneously.
Yes, there's the physical fire on the altar, but also the digestive fire in the belly, the fire of passion in the heart, the fire of intelligence in the mind, and ultimately the fire of consciousness itself, what they called Chit Agni, the fire of pure awareness.
So when they're tending the altar fire, they're simultaneously tending all these inner fires.
Precisely. The external ritual is a technology for managing internal energies. Modern yoga still uses this understanding. Tapas, often translated as austerity, literally means heat or fire. It's the inner fire generated through practice that transforms consciousness.
The fire must be maintained continuously once lit. There are priests whose sole job is to keep it burning, feeding it with specific woods at specific times, maintaining exact temperatures.
This constant tending mirrors the continuous attention required for consciousness transformation. You can't just light the fire once and walk away. Awareness requires constant cultivation, continuous renewal.
And different woods produce different effects, some for purification, some for energy, some for clarity. The priests understood that what you feed the fire determines its quality, just as what you feed consciousness determines its state.
There's something else extraordinary about this tradition: the relationship between breath, fire, and consciousness.
Ah, you're touching on something profound. The Vedic texts say prana is Agni, breath is fire. Every breath fans the inner fire. The altar construction includes specific breathing patterns coordinated with brick placement. They understood that breath is the bridge between voluntary and involuntary, conscious and unconscious.
And modern research confirms this. Controlled breathing affects everything from heart rate variability to gamma wave production in the brain.
The altar builders were essentially using breath as a consciousness technology. The rhythm of building, bend, place, breathe, chant, creates what we'd now call a flow state, where the boundary between self and action dissolves.
The specific breathing patterns weren't random either. Certain ratios of inhalation to retention to exhalation were used for different stages of construction. They mapped how breath patterns affect consciousness, states with remarkable precision.
The order teaches similar practices, using breath, movement, and attention to shift consciousness states. It's like the altar ritual is an ancient technology manual for consciousness transformation.
And it's a manual that includes failure modes and troubleshooting. The texts describe what happens if you place bricks incorrectly, if your attention wavers, if the proportions are off. They understood that precision matters in consciousness work.
Let's discuss one of the most sophisticated aspects, how the altar functions as a calendar and astronomical computer.
A computer made of bricks?
In a sense, yes. The 1009 bricks aren't random. They represent specific time cycles. 360 bricks for the days of the year, plus additional bricks for intercalary periods to align lunar and solar calendars. The arrangement encodes the relationship between different time cycles, daily, monthly, yearly, and even larger cosmic cycles.
So building the altar is literally building a model of time?
A model of spacetime. The spatial arrangement represents temporal relationships. This isn't just clever symbolism. It's based on the profound insight that consciousness exists at the intersection of space and time. By manipulating spatial relationships with temporal awareness, you can shift consciousness itself.
The altar also encodes the cycles of Venus, the lunar phases, even the 26,000-year precession of the equinoxes. They were building a 4-dimensional map in 3-dimensional space.
This reminds me of what modern physics suggests about space-time being fundamental to consciousness, that our experience of reality emerges from how we parse 4-dimensional space-time into 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time.
The Vedic seers seemed to understand this intuitively. They knew that consciousness and cosmos mirror each other, that by building a precise model of cosmic relationships, you could restructure your own awareness to align with cosmic consciousness.
And they understood something about time that we're losing in our digital age. That time has texture, quality, not just quantity. Certain moments are more potent for transformation than others.
The muhurta system, dividing the day into specific periods, each with its own quality and suitable activities. They knew that consciousness fluctuates in predictable patterns and designed practices to work with these rhythms rather than against them.
There's a beautiful concept in the tradition, that the altar, once complete, must be ceremonially destroyed and rebuilt.
Yes, this is crucial. The altar isn't meant to become a permanent monument. After the ritual, it's dismantled. If you perform the ritual again the next year, you build a new altar, slightly larger. This represents the principle that consciousness must constantly renew itself. That fixation leads to stagnation.
It's like the Tibetan sand mandalas, created with enormous effort only to be destroyed, teaching impermanence.
But with an additional dimension. Each rebuilding incorporates the growth from the previous cycle. The altar gets progressively larger, representing expanding consciousness. You're not just cycling, but spiraling upward.
The order speaks of similar principles. That transformation isn't a one-time achievement, but an ongoing process of death and rebirth, each cycle building on the last.
And the destruction isn't violent or careless. It's done with the same precision as the construction. Each brick is removed with specific mantras, acknowledging its service, releasing its energy back to the cosmos.
There's profound wisdom in that, recognizing that even our spiritual achievements must be released, that clinging to past realizations prevents future growth.
The Vedic tradition understood that consciousness is dynamic, not static. The altar teaches that even the most sacred structures must be renewed, that yesterday's revelation can become today's limitation.
Let's explore how this tradition influenced later developments in Indian philosophy and practice.
The connections to yoga are obvious.
Absolutely. The word yoga means union or yoking, and the fire altar ritual is about yoking individual consciousness to cosmic consciousness. Many yogic practices, especially pranayama and meditation on geometric forms called yantras, derive directly from the altar tradition.
And the chakra system?
The chakras can be understood as an internalized fire altar. 7 main energy centers, like the 7.5 proportions of the altar. Each chakra has specific geometric forms, mantras, elements, exactly like the layers of the altar. The yogic practitioner builds their inner altar through visualization and energy work, rather than physical bricks.
So yoga democratized the fire altar tradition. Instead of needing resources to build a massive physical structure, anyone could build the altar internally.
That's a brilliant way to put it. The external ritual became internal practice, but the principles remained: precise geometry, sacred sound, controlled breath, and the understanding that consciousness can be restructured through systematic practice.
The tantric traditions took this even further. They mapped the entire cosmos onto the human body, macrocosm as microcosm. Every deity, every cosmic principle, every sacred geometry could be activated within one's own being.
And this wasn't just philosophical speculation. These were practical technologies. Visualize this yantra, chant this mantra, breathe this pattern, and specific changes occur in consciousness.
Modern neuroscience is validating much of this ancient understanding, isn't it?
Remarkably so. Studies on meditation show that sustained practice literally rebuilds brain structure, increasing gray matter in areas associated with attention and emotional regulation, decreasing the size of the amygdala associated with fear and stress. The altar builders were right. Consciousness has architecture, and that architecture can be rebuilt.
And the geometric aspect?
There's fascinating research on sacred geometry and consciousness. Certain geometric patterns, the golden ratio, fractal patterns, specific symmetries, seem to resonate with neural processing in ways that create coherent brain states. The altar's geometry wasn't arbitrary, but based on patterns that naturally harmonize consciousness.
Studies on Tibetan monks show that visualizing complex geometric mandalas activates specific brain regions, increases cognitive performance, enhances emotional regulation. They're literally using geometry to reprogram neural networks.
It makes you wonder what other technologies for consciousness transformation we've forgotten or dismissed as mere ritual.
The Order preserves many such technologies, not because they're traditional, but because they work. The fire altar teaches us that transformation requires precision, patience, and practice. You can't rush consciousness evolution any more than you can rush the careful placement of 1,000 bricks.
And it teaches us that consciousness work is both art and science. There's tremendous precision required, but also creativity, intuition, the ability to feel when something is properly aligned.
There's something else that strikes me: the communal aspect. These rituals weren't performed alone, but required a team of specialists, each with specific roles.
Essential point. There was the Yajamana, the patron who sponsored the ritual for their own transformation, the Advaryu, the chief priest who directed the construction, specialists for chanting, for specific ritual actions, for maintaining the fire. It was understood that transformation happens in community.
Each person's role was precisely defined, like musicians in an orchestra.
And like an orchestra, the harmony of all participants created something greater than any individual could achieve. The ritual created a field of consciousness that elevated everyone involved. Modern research on group meditation shows similar effects: synchronized brainwaves, enhanced coherence, amplified benefits.
The Order emphasizes this too, that while inner work is personal, transformation happens most powerfully in community, with guides who've walked the path before.
And the Vedic tradition understood that different people have different gifts. Not everyone needs to know all the mantras or understand all the geometry. Each person contributes their specific expertise to the larger transformation.
This challenges our modern individualistic approach to spirituality. We think we have to do everything ourselves, but the altar tradition shows that transformation can be a collaborative art.
Let's talk about perhaps the most profound aspect: The relationship between the altar and the concept of Purusha, the cosmic being.
This is the idea that the universe itself is conscious.
More than that. The Purusha Sukta, one of the most important Vedic hymns, describes the cosmos as a giant being whose body becomes all of creation. The fire altar is built in the shape of this cosmic being. As you construct it, you're literally rebuilding the cosmos and simultaneously rebuilding yourself as a microcosm of that cosmos.
So the practitioner becomes the universe becoming conscious of itself.
Beautifully stated. The altar ritual is a technology for experiencing what the Upanishads later articulated as Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that. You are not separate from the cosmos, but its very consciousness becoming aware of itself.
This is remarkably similar to what some modern physicists suggest, that consciousness might be fundamental to the universe, not an emergent property, but the ground of being itself.
The Vedic seers would say, what took you so long to figure that out? They experienced this directly through practices like the fire altar, then built philosophies to explain their experiences.
And the Purusha isn't just a concept, but an experience. Through the altar ritual, practitioners reported experiencing themselves as the cosmic being, feeling their consciousness expand to encompass all of creation.
Which modern psychedelic research also documents experiences of cosmic consciousness, unity with all existence. But the Vedic tradition achieved this through precise ritual technology rather than substances.
Though they weren't averse to substances either. Soma, the mysterious sacred drink of the Vedas, was almost certainly psychoactive. They understood that consciousness could be shifted through multiple means: ritual, geometry, sound, breath, and yes, sacred plants.
But always within a container, always with preparation and integration. They knew that raw experience without framework could be overwhelming or meaningless.
The altar provided that framework. Every experience during the ritual could be understood through the mythology, the cosmology, the precise structure of the practice itself.
Let's talk about a lesser-known but fascinating aspect, the role of desire in the ritual.
This surprises people familiar with later Indian philosophy that emphasizes desire as the cause of suffering.
But in the Vedic period, desire, kama, was understood as the creative force of the universe itself. The Rig Veda says desire was the first seed of mind, the primal force that caused the one to become many.
And the fire altar ritual works with desire rather than against it. The patron begins with a specific desire for wealth, for children, for knowledge, for immortality. This desire fuels the year-long practice.
But through the ritual process, desire itself is transformed. What begins as personal wanting becomes cosmic participation. You start wanting something for yourself and end up wanting what the cosmos wants.
It's spiritual alchemy, using the energy of desire as fuel for transformation rather than trying to suppress it.
The order teaches something similar, that our shadows, our desires, our difficult emotions aren't obstacles but raw material for transformation. The fire altar shows this principle in action.
And fire is the perfect metaphor. Fire consumes, destroys, but also purifies and transforms. Desire is the same. It can destroy or illuminate depending on how it's channeled.
There's another dimension to explore, the relationship between the altar and soma, that mysterious sacred drink.
Soma is one of the great mysteries of Vedic culture. Clearly psychoactive, clearly central to their practices, but we don't know for certain what plant or combination it was.
The altar ritual included soma pressing and consumption. The priests would drink soma at specific points, entering altered states that allowed them to perceive the subtle dimensions of what they were building.
Some scholars think soma was a mushroom, Amanita muscaria. Others suggest Syrian rue, cannabis, ephedra. It might have been different plants at different times and places.
But what's clear is that the Vedic seers understood the careful use of entheogens within ritual context, not recreational, not casual, but as a technology for accessing specific states required for the work.
And always integrated with other practices. Soma alone didn't create the transformation. It was soma plus ritual plus community plus mythology plus precise practice.
This integral approach is what we're rediscovering in modern psychedelic therapy. The substance is just a catalyst. The container and integration determine the outcome.
The altar tradition shows remarkable sophistication in creating that container. A year of preparation, precise ritual structure, community support, mythological framework for understanding experiences.
Let's discuss the sonic dimension more deeply, because sound is absolutely crucial to this tradition.
The Vedic understanding of sound is profound. They distinguish between struck sound, what we hear with our ears, and unstruck sound, the primordial vibration from which all creation emerges.
And mantras bridge these two. The spoken mantra is struck sound, but it resonates with the unstruck sound, the fundamental frequency of creation itself.
Each mantra in the altar ritual has specific effects. Some purify, some energize, some create protection, some open consciousness to cosmic frequencies. The priests knew exactly which sounds to use when.
Modern somatics shows how sound creates geometric patterns in matter. The Vedic seers understood this. That sound shapes reality, that the right frequencies can restructure not just matter, but consciousness.
The altar construction coordinated sound at multiple levels: individual mantras for brick placement, collective chanting at transitions, periods of silence for integration. They were composing a symphony of consciousness transformation.
And they understood overtones, harmonics, the way sounds combine and amplify. The group chanting wasn't just volume, but creating complex wave patterns that affected everyone present.
The order works with similar principles, understanding that certain sounds, certain frequencies, can shift consciousness states reliably when properly applied.
There's a practical teaching here. In our noisy world, we've lost sensitivity to sound's consciousness affecting properties. We're bombarded with frequencies that create stress, distraction, fragmentation.
The altar tradition reminds us that sound is powerful medicine. What we listen to, what we speak, what we chant, all of this shapes our consciousness architecture.
Let's explore one more crucial aspect: the relationship between the altar and the elements.
The five elements, earth, water, fire, air, space, aren't just physical substances in Vedic understanding, but principles of consciousness.
And the altar works with all five: earth in the bricks, water in the purifications, fire obviously central, air in the breath and mantras, and space, the most subtle, in the geometric proportions and relationships.
Each element has psychological correlates. Earth is stability, grounding, water is emotion, flow, fire is transformation, will, air is thought, movement, space is pure consciousness, the container for all experience.
The altar ritual balances these elements precisely. Too much earth and you get rigidity. Too much fire and you burn out. The proportions create optimal balance for transformation.
This becomes the basis for Ayurvedic medicine, for yoga philosophy, for understanding how consciousness and cosmos interact through elemental principles.
And it's intensely practical. Feeling ungrounded? Work with earth element, emotionally stuck? Invoke water? Lacking motivation? Kindle fire. Yeah. The elements become a diagnostic and prescriptive system for consciousness.
The order teaches elemental work too, understanding that consciousness expresses through these fundamental patterns and can be balanced through working with them.
As we wrap up, I'm struck by how this ancient practice anticipated so many modern insights: neuroplasticity, the importance of ritual, group consciousness effects, the relationship between geometry and awareness.
And yet it goes beyond what modern science has reached. The fire altar tradition understands consciousness not as a problem to be solved, but as a creative force to be cultivated. It offers not just description, but prescription, a detailed manual for consciousness transformation.
What would you say is the key teaching for modern seekers?
That consciousness has structure, and that structure can be intentionally rebuilt. Whether through physical altars, yogic practice, or other technologies, we can architect our own awareness. But it requires precision. Every brick matters, every breath counts, every mantra shapes the final structure.
And patience. You can't build 1,000-brick altar overnight.
No, and that's perhaps the hardest teaching for our instant gratification culture. The Vedic tradition understood that genuine transformation takes time, requires repetition, demands commitment. But the result, a consciousness restructured to mirror the cosmos itself, That's worth any amount of patient building.
The order teaches similarly. That transformation is a craft requiring sustained practice, precise methods, and gradual building of new capacities.
And like the fire altar, once you've built that new consciousness, you don't cling to it. You let it dissolve and rebuild again, each time larger, each time incorporating more of the infinite.
There's one final dimension I want to touch on: the ecological wisdom embedded in this tradition.
Essential point. The altar tradition emerged from a deep connection with natural cycles, seasonal rhythms, the living earth. The bricks were made from clay, the fire fed with wood, the ritual timed to agricultural and astronomical cycles.
They understood that human consciousness isn't separate from nature, but an expression of it. The altar ritual aligns human transformation with cosmic rhythms.
This is what we've lost in our disconnection from nature. We try to transform consciousness in isolation from the living systems we're embedded in.
The Vedic tradition knew that genuine transformation must be ecologically grounded. You can't ascend to cosmic consciousness while destroying the earth that sustains you.
The order emphasizes this too. That consciousness evolution and ecological awareness are inseparable. That we must build our inner altars in harmony with the living world.
Perhaps that's the ultimate teaching of the fire altar. That consciousness transformation isn't escape from the material world, but deeper participation in its sacred patterns.
Building with earth toward heaven, but always grounded, always connected, always in relationship with the living cosmos.
The altar shows us that matter and consciousness aren't opposites, but partners in the dance of transformation.
Thank you for joining us for this exploration.
Ab immemorabili, from time beyond memory.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep growing.
And remember, the wisdom you seek has always been within you.
You're not learning it,
You're remembering it.